city.
All right.
So they spent
All right.
35 minutes.
It's,
discussing the T-Mobile sign.
9:02, 9:05, depending on what your clock says, so we can go ahead and get started. First in-person CIC in many, many months. We did it a couple times last summer, but only once or twice, so. Welcome back. It's nice to see a lot of faces not on a screen, as well as those on the screen. We're supposed to talk about form-based code, but I wanted to give a quick update for those of you who were unable to come to the two meetings that happened last week about the comp plan. The timeline we had talked about, I think, is still our plan. There's going to be a resolution on the next town board agenda that they can pass if they wish. The CIC is recommending that there be a public hearing at the July town board meeting. So that's what we're going with. It's in the town board's hands. And we'll see what happens. There was some excited conversation last week about the comp plan. And I think everybody's happy with where it is for the most part. Maybe a couple people wish there was a little more public input. So that's what we're going to see what the town board wants to do with that. There was discussion about potential for a workshop or something maybe before a town board meeting, but I'm not sure what they're going to want to do. And those recordings are available on YouTube if you want to. One of them was Doug does a monthly meeting live on Facebook. We call it the Citizens Academy, and every month it's something different. It might be the transfer station or the clerk's office, or we talked about a lot of stuff, the newsletter, and last week we talked about the comp plan because it seemed timely. And then of course, Thursday was the comp plan project team meeting. And I mean, we did get a few people that were on the project team show up, so that was good, but we didn't get as many people as I'd hoped. But so that's the quick and dirty update on that. There we go. I'd asked for questions about that, but I think almost everybody here was at least one of those meetings.
I think most of us are pretty burned out.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I feel confident that we've worked pretty hard to get the word out.
A
So,
lot of input over quite a long period of time.
and I'm comfortable with the process we've decided on. So today we're going to talk about form-based code. So as most of you know, the form-based code focusing on the area the area along State Route 332 in Uptown has been drafted. I believe it's in the final stages now. Ordinance Committee has looked at it. We've talked about it here in CIC. The Economic Development Committee, which has kind of served as the steering committee for this project, has finished looking at it. So there's going to be a resolution on the agenda for the town board to set a public hearing for that in July as well. And then I think it was last week, the Economic Development Committee met again, and Kimberly Baptiste from Bergman went over the next phase for the project for Uptown, and that focused on the areas kind of what we call behind 332. And that's going to be, help me, the mixed use or something like that. Not the MUO, but the form-based code version of that. I can't remember, mixed residential or something. Anyway, it's the areas on the map that were kind of yellow, and they're going to allow housing as well as commercial all happening in the same area. And they met about that to kind of go over in a little more detail. I think it was the 3rd. So not last week, the week before. So they already had a rough draft of that they shared with the Economic Development Committee. And so, I mean, it seems like it's moving right along. So it's doing pretty good. And everybody seems still really supportive of the ideas that the project is pushing through. So did anyone here not go to those meetings, or was there any questions on what they talked about for those of you who were at them?
Good.
Oh, good. Well, we'll just push it on through then.
Next item.
Um, let's see. So I don't know exactly what the timeline is going to be on this next phase, but I think they'll meet again. There's not a date for their next meeting yet, but I think they're going to try and stick with about monthly. So I imagine it'll be early July. Oksana is still a chair of that committee, and she's not here today. So she and I have to just work with Kimberly to set up the next meeting. But I have the draft and I shared it with you all. Did anyone have any questions or comments about what was in the draft? Did anyone get a chance to take a look at it yet?
I do.
Yeah.
For clarification, form-based, and we had also, I believe in the previous meeting, had been talking about affordable housing. A form-based code be used in other areas besides like 332 and behind 332? Or is it, just how is that set up?
So this project is written specifically for those areas. So when this project is done, it'll only be for those designated areas. So again, the strict form-based code along 332 and then different standards for the areas back,
Okay.
behind 332, but only in Uptown. So if we wanted to pursue this in other parts of the town, it would be a whole separate form-based code project. Yeah.
So are we considering this a pilot program for form-based code with the possibility of it being applied to other areas?
I don't know. So this was, you guys will all remember, we did the study with Bergman back in 2000, I don't even know, was it 2018? To look at the feasibility study for Uptown. That was when we wanted to kind of create a new vision for Uptown and see what we could make of it, back.
And at the end of that, yeah.
Yeah, and so then what came out of that was the recommendation that we consider a form-based code. So I don't know, I'm not aware of any conversations we've had about other parts of the town, but if that's something the town board wants to consider, it seems like it fits best here though, because form-based code is more about creating the look and feel that you want in an area. So I don't know, there are less options for that in other parts of the town, unless they're more like some of our growth node areas, maybe. Not sure. Any other ideas on that? So, I mean, I guess, yeah, you could say it was a pilot, but I don't know how far it would go for other parts of the town.
I think your question is if you went into the apartment building on Middle Treasure Road, which is SCR1, could you do it? Not presently, but you go to get a zoning variance or whatever.
Or rezoning.
Rezoning, right?
Spot zoning or rezoning or whatever. This is just to try and build out.
Use our space wisely in
Yeah.
Uptown. Yeah.
That particular geographic area of the town, which we all like to see. I don't know whether we'll live to see it, but
Oh, yeah, I don't think it's fast. I mean, it'll be kind of it'll happen with turnover, I think. Or
And
development of the
demand, just
vacant.
The demand for different types of
Right.
affordable housing, whatever
Yeah.
the hell affordable housing is, we've been through that. And Doug, have you got any prospects up there? I mean, it's waiting.
I've got, without going into all the details, I've got one particular person that has just acquired all of the land that we've been discussing for the last 5 years. On track to move it forward. I think one of the concepts that I saw was about 800 units.
Lord.
But it is also incorporates a big component relative to price point of around $150,000. So you could,
Sounds almost unbelievable.
it checks a couple of boxes. You have to be creative in the way that they do that, but they're, so.
Right.
Is there any apartment complex within that?
That is actually what is classified as single family residential.
Okay, the
Um,
entire block.
No, not the entire plot. And then the portion that's closest to Blue Heron, the concept would be some retail plus apartments,
Pretty
multiple
much what
story.
we wanted. in
It's
that.
very similar. Well, truthfully, I mean, they originally brought a plan in that I was just like, I don't see that ever working. And I showed them our concepts and they're like, I think we can get something close to that. So then they came back.
Should we could share this draft with them, I suppose.
Not yet, not
No?
yet. They're getting
Okay.
ready to make application and then we can, so.
All right.
So it's not in sketch yet, then? It's not,
It's not an
No.
official application yet, no,
okay.
but it's getting close.
I think one of the important things that came out of the affordable housing, I just watched the video from last week because I couldn't attend, but was the fact that, or suggestion, I guess, was the fact that this be kind of a different type of construction, of development, using all different types of housing. And I think that is a really good idea for that area. And it seems as though, not knowing what the phase 2 recommendations are for, the project review here for that area. But I think that's a good idea, that different types of housing be accommodated in the development of that area, not just apartments and not just single family, but, tiny home or whatever other different kinds of housing, you can come up with that would fall under affordable housing. I like the community center. I think, Karen, you made a recommendation about a community center, something with community center. That's really good. And I think that this is also an opportunity for us to look to energy sustainability and try to figure out if we can incorporate solar and some other alternative energies, geothermal and things like that.
Community centers, has there been any activity in regard to the Y moving or expanding? Have you heard that?
The why from the last conversation I knew was looking at a location in the city of Canandaigua. They had originally been talking about the uptown area over near the school bus garage. There was some interest in that kind of general area, but then the most recent conversation that I heard was the city, but I don't know if that's.
I was just thinking community centers.
Yeah, this proposal that we're talking about, they are proposing, is it 2 community centers? But specific for that area.
For that,
community,
mhm.
yeah.
Oh, that's great.
That is good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So is there anything for this area that would be similar to the factory 243, whatever that is, which I am really impressed with what they've done there. In fact, I looked into selling my house and moving there. But they have the concept that we want for the uptown area, a mixture of housing, restaurant, park land, etc.
This is the list.
It's
Project.
just,
The old list, right?
yeah, the list project. It's just, it would be apartment type living, which I think uptown is ideal for that,
Oh,
ideal.
for sure. One of the things that I've found over the last couple of years, and I've had quite a few different conversations this past year about uptown. Certain builders focus on certain types of
Certain.
housing, and it's hard to find somebody that's willing to cross over from one to the next. Like, for instance, DeMarco is one of the few that I see where they'll do apartments plus residential plus commercial. There's not very many that'll do that whole assortment. The gentleman that we're talking to, quite honestly, the conversation I had with him was him doing the single family residential, getting the approval for all of the different pieces and then selling off the components like the apartment buildings to let somebody else do that. And that's a very similar conversation that I had with another developer who's looking at the driving range, and that's all moving forward, where he's looking to get the concept approved and then sell off
I see.
because they don't, and it's very hard for a developer to be able to do all of that just because of the cash
Yeah.
investment.
Yes, I agree that
Yeah.
it would probably be a specific developer
Right.
that is experienced in doing
Yeah.
that. And also forward thinking,
Right.
because that's very much what that factory
Mhm.
243 is.
Yeah.
Very forward thinking. And I've seen one in Rochester too.
Well, the whole East Ave in Rochester is very similar concept where you've got multiple floors, I think 4 or 5 floors actually, condos where they filled in the inner plaza or the inner loop all around
Mhm.
East Ave. Very, very similar concept.
Go on Alexander Street where the
Mhm.
old Genesee Hospital was. I mean, that place is awesome,
Mhm.
awesome. And on a lower scale, maybe two-story, maybe three-story, would be so, it would fit in so nicely in the uptown area where you have the capability to walk. There would be storefronts nearby, restaurants,
Right.
everything you envision.
What I've experienced is I know 3, well, there's 2 developers that have contracts on land in Uptown that are the vast majority of the pieces. And then there's another landowner that are all kind of like, they're waiting a little bit on us, and they're also waiting a little bit on the closing of their land and that sort of thing, and all the different pieces that have to, because pretty much all of the property, the driving range, as well as all of that land behind Blue Heron Park, it's all been tied up for over a decade in a series of legal aspects that's finally all being cleaned up, I guess is what I would say. It's all finally come to fruition. It's finally all. And so now's the perfect time for us to have the plan and get everything in place. And the developers are willing. They're willing to talk to us. They may not want to develop the whole entire thing, but they're willing to, okay, you do this and I'll do this phase and I'll sell this off to the other developer that comes along and work with you, So the good thing is we've got very willing and interested people that it looks like are going to take title to the land for now, knowing that they won't be the long-term title owners to the land.
A couple of things, couple of thoughts from listening to the conversation, because you mentioned forward thinking. I think that with this, that's critical.
Yes.
I mean, and my idea of forward thinking is, 10, 20 years from now, how this can all, work and be sustained,
Exactly.
And the other thing is a side note, when I left here from our last housing meeting there, turned on the radio, who's on but Evan Dawson, and the conversation was all about housing, that's the Rochester Inner Loop, and it was a great program. They interviewed people that live in the area, what they're looking for, home ownership, for kids and things like that. I thought it was just very timely, to
Well,
listen to
that's
that.
what we want. We want a conglomerate of ages,
Yep.
types of families, types of interests. That's what makes a community really diverse and interactive and worthy of growth. And this is a perfect area up there, even with all the car places. Well, I have to give them credit. They make it look really nice, because drive up West Henrietta Road, those do not look nice. So, but I think, and and I'm an old lady, and I think that this is what makes a community. We need to have these things in the community. And Sarah can tell you, it's difficult for someone your age with a family to find a logical space to park yourself for a period of 20 years to raise your kids. It's really difficult. I mean, I'm very fortunate here. I mean, living on Laura Lane, that's a community, even though we don't have any storefronts. We have people walking their dogs, their babies, their husbands, it's just It's a community.
Wait, walking their husbands?
Oh.
I can't get mine out.
Laura Lane is overrepresented. There's 3 houses here from Laura.
Wow.
But and they, you know, they stop and they talk and you might not know them because they come from the morale development too. But you talk to them and that's what it takes to make Canandaigua a really great place to live.
But when you talk about a sense of community, we were having a discussion this morning with some old farts at breakfast. And the
I wasn't
statistic,
invited.
the statistic, well, that's it, we are old farts. That the average home turns over in 4.5 years. I mean, so I mean, there's no longer, I guess, the sense of fidelity to your employer. So young people are moving more frequently and more easily. And again, do you get a sense of community or do you have a transient community? And I don't know how you build that, but
I think
we're old compared with most of the demographics.
as someone who's moved an awful lot, it doesn't matter how long you're going to be somewhere. If there is a sense of community there, you jump right in, you know?
Mhm.
Yes, I bought and sold my house in 5 years, but while I was there, I knew everyone on my whole street and so did my kids because we lived down there, just down the road in Canandaigua. And it really does have a sense of community. I can only speak for that part of the city of Canandaigua, but near the elementary school, but everybody knows everybody. And there's so many kids there. There were some retirees in our neighborhood, but as they were moving out, it was being replaced with younger and younger families. And so there were just kids everywhere. And I think that's a really great way to make sure you do have a busy population, is make sure you don't just get one age group. A nice mix makes it nice,
Exactly.
whether you're there for a
Exactly.
year or 15 years. I don't think it matters. And especially like in an apartment community, a lot of people are there because they're waiting for something else. They're waiting until they can buy a home, or maybe they just moved here. Like that's what my family did. We rented an apartment for 6 months until we decided where we wanted to live. But yeah, I mean, those people deserve a community too, even if they're only there 6 months or a year.
The thing is, cities are more able to
Right.
encourage community interaction. Things are more accessible in cities. And that's why I see Uptown as the next generation of a city.
It's a town center. It's-
Yes, that's the potential of it. You know, it's got parkland, it's got auto dealerships, it's got restaurants, it's got offices that can be turned into storefronts, whatever you want for them. It needs the housing element to really make it a fully sustainable community, in my opinion.
Well, I think you're spot on because, and I tell you, some of the conversations that I've had with developers is and for instance, the one
You want me
gentleman
to
who
talk to
owns.
them? I can be really passionate about this.
Well, the one gentleman who is the option now on all that land and he's working through that process. What he said to me is he understands the concept and buys into the retail. And Andy Griffith was in this meeting too, and I'll share with you. And Andy Griffith said he was spot on. But until the residential is there first, they're never going to attract the business. So they've got to get the residential first to have the people, and then they can fill the storefronts and stuff.
Creates the demand.
You know, and then the other thing too, you know, this makes me think about apartment living and stuff like that. It doesn't make sense to put apartments out on the outskirts because the people in apartments, they're the ones who want that community more because it is often people who are transitioning or new to an area. And we stick them out, you know, on a road that's kind of off the beaten path, they kind of feel isolated. So Uptown really is a really, really good spot to put more apartments. I think it's perfect. And a mix of others is good too, but yeah.
Well, we have 2 other MUO areas in
Right.
addition to Uptown that we could look at. The Gateway area, obviously being the north end of town, and MUO 3, which is the 364. But obviously this
Right.
has been the focus.
And
So-
364 is another good spot for building stuff up. And you've got post office and Wegmans right nearby and everything. So
There's a project proposed down there, isn't it?
Mhm.
yes, yeah.
Joyce and Chuck, you guys are our guinea pigs here. We've had quite a little dialogue back and forth. Could you hear us okay? We just have new microphones installed here and stuff.
Yes, I could hear you perfectly.
Wonderful.
Nice.
It gets stronger. Sarah and Shauna and Doug, you're very strong. You get to the other side of the table,
Other side of
Tom's
the
a little
room.
weak. And
Okay.
maybe it's something, there's a trail off on the sound as you get further away from the source. But other than that, it's good.
Good.
Awesome.
As we were talking, I had the map up on the screen. The areas in yellow are the focus of this next phase of form-based code. And I was listening to Doug talk. It sounds like we already have people interested in at least half of the yellow
Yes.
area. I just hope we can get these plans and regulations in place in time for them to benefit from it, or at least get it going along the lines that we want and keep them on board with our ideas. Because you're talking about this big chunk here too, right?
Yes,
And then
Yes.
this and this
yes.
Yeah.
and that,
And there's one more parcel
There's
there too.
four.
That,
There's four
yeah.
parcels.
yeah.
Older guy. Owned, I think he thought he owned part of the roads.
Oh, Jim Volpe.
Jim Volpe, is he still around?
He is, he still has the little piece of property there on Parkside Drive that
He's offered that as a
It's,
community.
Kinda backed
I
off,
hope it's up there,
waiting to
yeah.
see
If
what
you go on the
Shannon
drive,
wants.
yeah. You stop
he
for a
wants
second.
money though. He's not willing to donate it. He wants it constructed with
Yeah, I know.
multiple things so that.
I sat in his boathouse for a couple of hours one day while he talked to me about it. He's okay.
Yeah, he means well.
Looking for the properties.
Yeah.
It's on the M drive. by
Am I
itself.
in drive? Oh, my glasses.
Timelines for phase two and the, I don't know, urgency,
Oh,
but
okay.
just how things are moving along with developers here. What do we expect from phase two process? Are we looking at how is the economic development team, ready to pass it on to somebody, or have they reviewed it, or how far are they?
So they had their first meeting on this next phase just, I guess it was about a week and a half ago. So no, they're not, it's not, the draft is not ready to move on to another group yet. And I should open it back up. Shauna's gonna look for something real quick, but
You can go ahead.
I think, Doug, do you remember, does this next phase include this and the stuff on the other side too? We talked about the industrial zoning as well. If I can scroll and find.
I think
one.
that's the next
Is it?
phase. I think it's this mixed, whatever it's called.
Is it-
The red is the 332 sub area. I know.
Yeah,
that's
the red is
associated-
what we already mostly finished and is moving forward with. I'm looking for the map. That she shared when we were in the meeting, but I can't find the larger map that shows the other areas. This is just these now. So yeah. What they're working on now seems just to be this yellow area.
So we can expect that it's probably going to follow the same process as phase one, which would also include, a presentation to not only the businesses and the, people in the area, but we're also talking about public meetings and things like that, which seems to me like we're a little ways away from even, developing, kind of a final draft here. How will that interact with what's happening right now with the developer? Does anybody have a guess, Doug, whether we would be able to complete the review of phase two and then kind of, mesh it in with the timeline for the developer? Or
Yeah, I think it's a little further along than that, Joyce. And I think that they think that it'll go along a little quicker than maybe the first one, because the first one being a completely new concept. But the developer is aware. Shauna's in communication with the developer, so they know this is coming. The developer is willing to either go the route of the MUO and do it in keeping with the form-based, or willing to basically do the form-based, whichever comes first. So the developer is great so far to work with. Hopefully it all stays that way. But you know, it would be nice if this phase, specifically this stuff that in yellow that Sarah is showing, if that could move forward a little faster than what the stuff in the red did.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that would be a really strategic idea, you know, because we don't want to, I don't know, have to have it go to the planning board when it's not really, when the vision really isn't there, you know. It would make it difficult, I think, for the planning board to kind of have the phase 2, you know, uniform code thing there, but not really, and then have MUO. It seems like it would be really muddled if we didn't get something definite in that area.
yeah. I mean, I think it, just like Doug said, I think it has a potential to move faster. It's not a full form-based code like the section along 332. There's still going to be recommendations and restrictions, but not like the other one. It's a little easier to swallow. So, I mean, as you can see on the sidebar that I have up, they already have a draft. And I did share this with you guys. So,
I got phase
there,
1
so we're-
the draft, but I didn't get phase 2. Or maybe I should go back and look again. Maybe you did send phase 2 and I just didn't get it.
yeah, no, I shared this one with the email. And it's
Economic
It's
development to CIC. I didn't get that. I went through everything. Huh.
well, I can share it again. But anyway, what I'll make sure is to include you guys on the email that comes to the Economic Development Committee. So if you want to, you have the time, you can sit in on their next meeting too. Which I said, I don't know when it's going to be, but I imagine it'll be in early July. I have to work with Oksana and Kimberly to set the next date. But what that group has done is they went through the beginning of this, and Kimberly took a few comments, and then they'll continue to go through it at the next one. And she kind of gave an overview of what's left. That's the map I was trying to pull up, but I realized it's not in this
Yeah,
draft.
it's not in there.
Of, you know, the larger picture, the one that had all the different colors, including, you know, the purple, which was up near the golf course, and the blue, which includes Pactiv in that area around there with the industrial and stuff. So, I mean, if you guys take a chance to go through this draft and you see anything you have questions with or concerns, let me know and I'll pass it back to Kimberly and they'll talk about it at the next Economic Development Committee. But, I mean, they are moving through. I don't know if it'll be done before the developers get going with their plans in the planning board. I mean, probably not. It's just, that's the frustration. But as we get excited about these things, so do the developers. It's kind of seems like it started to get busier since we did the Uptown plan back in 2018. So that's just the way it is. We're trying to catch up.
If I may, and I say the planning board, we have an application coming up that was in sketch plan, Canandaigua Crossings, I believe is the name of it, which is the site, the little triangular piece right by Tom Walls and the railroad. And they are coming in, and I think Chuck actually used the term using the spirit of the plan. So you'll see, and I was trying to pull it up, but I can't find it right now. It's not a car wash. It's 6,000 square feet of commercial. It's a really kind of progressive design. They've pulled the building up, and it does meet the intent of this plan, and we're actually really excited about it.
Nice.
Sarah,
Yeah.
I had sent you an email with the rendering this morning, or you can go to the FTP site
Is it on the FTP already?
and you can look there. It shows a picture of the rendering, and I agree with Sean, it would be appropriate, because I had sent it to you with the concept of, or the thought of maybe talking about it this morning as to how what we're talking about here could be applied to a live, real lot.
Yeah.
If you can get it, fine. Yeah, we're already in the throes of dealing with applications coming in, trying to persuade them to look at and
It's
consider
BME.
how to use or apply the concept of the uniform base code. Has been
Yeah.
not really a challenge. Most of them have been cooperative. We were successful over on Emerson Road
Hayford.
auto parts, auto repair place. I mean, it's tough to
Z-Bar.
dress it up. And well, Z-Bar's
Oh,
another
that's
story.
up
And that's
here.
one thing I wanted to ask
Yeah.
Doug, that
We
I
just
see
got it.
that Thomas, anything north of Thomas where the Z-Bar property is not included
is.
in the UBC. I know we talked about it with him, Doug, and I don't know, I know you were the last one to talk to Z-Bar. How was it left?
Could you pause this?
Yeah, so it's my
How do
understanding
you
that Z-Bart is still moving forward.
unpause?
So you're right, Chuck, that's all in that planned unit development. So that's another section of the form-based code, so it's not in this current section. That's a different section that they are proposing some different regulations for, very similar.
That's
There
really
were,
bad.
Sarah, there were
Go
about
back
5
in.
phases of the form-based code, I want to say.
One
It was
for
a
each
4 or
of
5.
those
It was one for each of the
colors.
different nodes and
Yeah.
stuff with the Uptown study originally. And so, but to the best of my knowledge, Z-Bart is still kind of working through some challenges there, but I believe that that's still moving forward. We were working with another developer or another business, I should say, on the southern half of the Z-Bart property. It doesn't look like that is going to pan out. They're going to go to Victor instead. But the Z-Bart, the lot is, to the best of my knowledge, that is still moving forward.
When you talk about
Thank you.
Z-Bar property, is that what used to be Mark Cases? Those
Hey,
storage-
this is-
No,
Is it
so
like-
well, that's where Z-Bart is currently located, but they're looking to purchase the property that is between Thomas Road and Campus Drive. And when you go in towards Acustos on the left-hand side.
Oh, right there.
Mhm.
So this is the
Mark Cases.
parcel Shauna was talking about.
Storage buildings.
Yeah, I like that design.
He told me it was an investor. I don't.
Yeah, they're proposing, again, 6,000 square feet the footprint, they reduced it, but they're gonna go up and put some commercial, they're doing 2 floors.
Yeah,
Significant, they also reduced it so they could put more outside dining and outside space
mhm.
on both ends of the building, which is really very much in line with
Yeah,
what we envisioned for that area.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a little hard to see, but
How high can they go?
No, it's,
I want to say 35 feet
With the current code.
is that
I believe.
current? I don't,
The form-based code, I think,
it
lifts
was
that
a
limitation.
little
It
higher
was a little
with
bit
like,
higher.
if
like
you're
decorative stuff
doing,
on
right,
top.
right.
But yeah, I mean,
Worry about the parking up front, but
yeah,
Yeah, exactly. We've talked to them, but they actually have reconfigured the building already.
to consider
To
maybe moving
consider,
that.
yeah. They will put, we talked about sidewalk. This is just in PRC and this is just our initial discussions with them this week, so. They're
Good.
very amenable to working with us.
that's
I
great.
wonder if, I mean, this section is within that red part, which is what's, potentially could be adopted within the next couple of months, if that's what the town board wants to do. And then it would be requiring the
Yeah.
parking to be on the side or in the rear.
Right, right.
Yeah,
So, I mean, we're in a kind of a weird transition because with them coming in now, there's at least 3 variances that they'll need per our current zoning.
Which they might not need if they.
Right, right. So the intent, and I will encourage them when they do go to ZBA, that to use these documents, especially the Uptown plan, as justification for the variance application. Variance. You see that?
Yeah. I wonder how familiar our ZBA is with the new
That's actually-
Uptown form-based
Yeah.
code.
That's gonna be, not, I don't think they've really seen it at all. Yeah,
Because they're gonna be seeing it soon if it's passed. Oh, I
We'll
know,
get a good idea where the town board is Monday night. So
right,
that's what if they go ahead and set the public hearing on it, move it forward, then that'll give us a
yep,
little bit better idea and then we'll know more next month.
Yep, great. See how they feel about it. I know I jumped around all over the screen. I'm sorry about that. I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing because my buttons disappeared. But I know we didn't really go through the plan page by page, but there's not really time to do that. But so after we talked about all this, does everybody kind of have a better idea of how this is moving forward? It's kind of piece by piece, but really every section is different. So there's not really any other way to do it. But I imagine they'll get, a bit farther after their next meeting, and I'll let you guys know when that is. And I'll probably be asking for comment again. Maybe we'll take a deeper look at it after they've gotten a bit farther in their work on it. But I'm glad to see it moving. I mean, can't go too fast at this point. Everybody's ready for it.
Yeah.
I have one general question. I know it came up regarding land use ordinances. When you said a hearing, I think Doug and Gary, that at the same time you recommend that the draft be sent out to reviewing agencies, including planning board and ECB and different agencies for their comments. And hopefully you do that. And I think you do. And I know that was a concern. A couple of the people of the planning board were concerned about it, seeing copies of the comp plan, the uniform base code, other legislation that may come forward. And we have enough time to put it on our meeting agenda and discuss it and get back to the board before action is taken. So I think that's one thing that I had asked, if possible, to make sure that confirmed that indeed is what happens.
Sure. So let's just talk about a second. So especially with code updates, town code updates and everything, the ordinance committee does a round of referrals before it ever goes to the town board. So the ordinance committee will refer it out to the planning board, zoning board, the county, ECB, everything for input before they'll make a recommendation to the town board. Then when it gets to the town board officially by resolution, the town board then refers it out to all the entities again. So the town board always meets the third Monday of every single month. So they only meet the one time, and it's very rarely that we have secondary meetings. So for instance, on a local law like that, the planning board should see it at least twice, if not more than that. The comprehensive plan, yes, same exact thing. That will get referred out. It would be setting a public hearing, referring it out, and then establishing. The town board always, you guys know this, the town board establishes the public hearing for the next month. At the first meeting, then the second month they have the public hearing, and more often than not, it's continued for another month just to give additional time and input. So it's usually a 60-day open public hearing process on most of the things, but they actually officially refer it out by resolution. So then you guys could take it up at whichever meeting, the first or second meeting.
Yeah, I know, not to extend or prolong the discussions of a particular piece of legislation, but if you have a hearing and then you vote the same night, that's kind of shortchanging it, or shortcutting it, so to speak. So sometimes if you have a hearing and then, take in all the recommendations and reviews that you receive through the course of the hearing, as well as anything that comes from the outside, and then possibly make a decision at the next meeting, that would be helpful. But just a consideration.
Well, Chuck, let me ask you this. How's that any different than the ZBA or the planning board? You have a public hearing the same night, you take in everything, and then more often than not, you make a decision.
Well,
Because they're gathering
it's
the
not-
input and everything. They're gathering the input all through the process. And then obviously anybody can provide written comment at any given time. That happens quite frequently where they'll set a public hearing for the next month and somebody will send emails, whatever the case. And so all that's factored in. It's not just the hearing at the town board meeting. All of that information is shared with the board members.
Mhm.
Okay, well, again, I think that was just a concern, obviously, of one or two of the planning board members, and you know who I'm talking about. And to make sure there's adequate input, and on behalf of the board, I felt I had to at least ask you, and I appreciate your response.
Sure.
Jack up the sound.
Yeah, the TV sound, the volume on the TV. I was
Can I do it
thinking the
with
same,
this?
on the side of the remote, Sarah.
On this one?
Yep, here, just pass it. Yeah, there you go.
I see it.
That'll turn him up.
All right, I think we can hear you better now.
It may
Oh,
be-
you gotta turn me off?
No, we wanted to turn you up a little
Hi,
bit.
Jack.
We're turning you up, Chuck.
Yeah, Chuck, when we met specifically about the comprehensive plan, there was discussion about going back into the community and holding community meetings. You know, if the town board wants to do that, that's certainly something they can do. But there's no way for us to guess what the town board would do in a public session. That's why we've got to refer it to the town board for them to make a decision and give some direction.
Very good. Thank you.
All right. Well, it's 9:50. I think we're set on form-based code. We kind of understand the process for comp plan. But I want to talk about our next meeting.
Well, let me ask a question. So when are we actually going to see like regulations on the yellow section? I think I
She
saw an
has-
email where there was one version, but are we gonna have a meeting where we like go through that in detail? I know we did with the Economic Development Committee. I know not everybody could attend, but I get concerned that, you know, we might need more than one because I'm not sure everybody understands. And I always get concerned if we keep it moving forward, which I know we need to do, but then is it gonna run into a wall someplace and slow it down even more if people don't understand? So I'm wondering,
So like hold, what do you mean? Just invite everybody to come to the Economic Development Committee meetings?
or whatever, but specifically, it doesn't even matter. Maybe it's an ordinance committee meeting or whatever it is. The ordinance committee is done with the red section, I believe, right?
Yeah.
That's at the town board this month.
Correct.
But the ordinance committee hasn't even discussed the
No,
yellow
We
section.
have not.
Because it hasn't really gone, I mean, what we did before is once the Economic Development Committee and Bergman got the red section drafted the way they were comfortable with, then it went to the ordinance committee. Maybe it would be better if the ordinance committee met right alongside the Economic Development Committee, so they're part of it the whole time.
Because we do kind of need it to move along a little faster than,
I
Well, we haven't
can,
received it yet, so I'm going, well,
well,
yeah.
but they haven't finished it yet.
Right.
And that's been our process. That's my question. Should we change the process and just get you involved right now? We can see if you guys can just meet
We had
jointly.
Bergman come before the economic and the ordinance committee, you know, and he,
But that was after. So
Right.
then it was like 2 more months of meetings. So yeah, I mean, it's not a bad idea. The Economic Development Committee used to have regularly scheduled meetings that happen the same time every month, but that kind of went out the window last year. Now they just kind of plan the meeting. So I could suggest that they hold the meeting at the same time as ordinance, but then that means that that's what you guys would be talking about that month.
or the second, or whichever the case. But I feel like, or maybe these are special meetings. And
Yeah,
we just invite everybody and get it recorded so that the board members can watch it if they can't participate in everything.
Okay.
It
Yeah.
just, there's the process and exactly what Chuck was talking about. And I see that we've got to make sure that there is public involvement, and not only public involvement, but the committees and the boards, the planning board, the town board, everybody's really got to understand this. And what it seems like has happened is the group focuses on their specific piece when it's before them, and then it drags on to the next, and then it gets to the next stage. And even though there may be some of the same people, they're thinking about it from a different mindset, and then it drags and drags on and on
it
and on.
does.
well, why don't we have a joint meeting with different committees? And then when it does get to their stage, they understand a lot better and they can move forward.
Right, that would be the ideal, I think.
I think we just have a lot of irons in the fire.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get everybody together for every meeting. I mean, we kind of set this up like trusting that these committees can take care of it so that they give you this package and you see what it is, and then you move it along. But these are pretty involved, pretty detailed, so I can see how that makes it harder for some of the other groups to wrap their head around it.
Well, I think, as you said, we got a lot of irons in the fire. We're also talking about the same thing with conservation subdivision, all these other things.
Right, and
that-
that's another one of those groups that meets on its own and
Right.
goes through the process and then hand it off. Yeah,
We handed it off.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, at the very simplest, I can make sure everybody's invited to the next Economic Development Committee meeting when they're gonna focus on that, the yellow part. But like I said, they haven't picked a day, so we can make it coincide with another group if we want to.
If this is going to be from Bergman, like an initial, presentation regarding phase 2, I would,
Already-
pardon me?
Sorry, they already did that, so.
Oh, okay. Well, then see.
But the Economic Development Committee did it because they are the steering committee for the project.
So what would the, multi-committee meeting look like? If they've already given the presentation, would they give another presentation? Because a lot of us haven't seen or know too much about phase 2.
I think that they're gonna have to give another presentation, because otherwise I don't know how we move forward with it, truthfully.
Okay, that's what I'm wondering. We have to play catch up here is what we really have to do. The other committees have to play catch up to be on the same page as the economic development team if we haven't been tuned into that. So,
And it's gonna be critical that the planning board members and the town board members participate in that so that they understand that, truthfully.
yeah. So a joint meeting seems very, a recommendable kind of process to get into right now. And that's
Right now, or when they have the draft at a point where it's ready to share with everybody? Or are you saying that everybody shouldn't be involved from the get-go? That's not how we've done it before. I'm not arguing, but I'm just saying, we're just doing what we've always done. And maybe that should change, but it's really hard to get everybody in the room for every single meeting. I think that's impossible.
That's very true. But the recommendation for a joint meeting is good. And
Yeah.
then another presentation, which would introduce phase 2 to everybody is probably something that would be valuable to any meeting that we would have. I'm just throwing out ideas here about if we want to move this forward more quickly, we're going to have to maybe backtrack one step because a lot of us, won't be able to play catch up as well as others. I mean, we've been at this, the CIC's been at this now. We know about form-based code and we've been through all this, but there are other committees like ordinance and others, maybe ECB, maybe planning board too, of course, and who need to have that background presentation to kind of set the framework for where we're moving more quickly.
The meeting that they had where Bergman gave the presentation was recorded. So it's
Okay.
on YouTube, and I think it was June 3rd. So the easiest thing to do is to recommend everybody watch that. The presentation wasn't for the full hour either, it was the beginning where she introduced the phase 2, the yellow section on that map I had.
But now that we can have in-person meetings and stuff, I mean, it is different when you're able to have a conversation. It could still be hybrid. It could still
Yeah.
be Zoom and everything. And we even said earlier in this meeting, the zoning board probably doesn't have and I agree with that. The zoning board probably doesn't have a good understanding. We need to get
They never
all
tried.
the members of the groups together so that everybody has a clear understanding of what we're doing.
Yeah. I agree.
Just for the yellow part or for the whole thing?
Just
Well,
right now, the yellow part.
well, so
I just have a feeling, I just have some urgency here that the yellow part, we've already got a developer, we've got something going here. We need to get everybody on board where we are going
right.
because the developer's involved. If there was no developer in phase, on the first phase, we didn't have developers who were just trying to get buy-in and stuff like that, but we've got buy-in now. So that it just means a little bit more urgent, I think.
Which is why I would suggest that we let the committee get to the point where they're ready to share it with everybody rather than stopping and going back and starting over again with every single group. I don't want to sound frustrated, but I don't know how best to get every board involved unless they come to the meeting where we're talking about it. And
So there's two things.
I don't want
guess
to
would
share
say.
the unfinished.
So I
part.
would take a step back even further. So the red part, the town board theoretically is going to set a public hearing for July. If
Good.
the town board
Yeah.
adopts it at July, I think we need a meeting to train everybody how to understand the red part, because
Yeah.
that was just adopted. And then,
And I think
we
that's
need
part of what
to-
Bergman said they would do.
and then separately, there
Yeah.
does need to be involvement in the yellow, because what I really would hate to see happen is we've done this work, the committee's done all this work, they forwarded onto the boards, and then a zillion questions come up, and it's going to be another year of going through the yellow versus if we just slow down for a second, have some additional joint meetings and get some so that everybody understands and is on the journey with us.
So should we have an evening meeting?
I don't think we have a choice.
Shouldn't we be?
I would think there's probably many opportunities to move this forward. It's just, just considering one and going with it. There's lots of different ways that we can do it. We could utilize the Bergman, program or presentation that we've recorded. I mean, that could be part of the deal. It's just trying to figure out how we can get everybody involved as quickly as possible and move it forward. So I'm sure staff can have all kinds of ways they can figure it out.
How about I set a meeting and people can come if they can come, if they so choose.
And it's recorded. So, I think having a hybrid is the best of both worlds, frankly.
All right, we'll work on it.
Chuck,
I'm
do
not
you have
really
any
sure.
suggestions? Because I know, I'm trying to avoid what we just ran into with the comp plan, and those were all recorded also. You have any suggestions?
I gotcha. I know.
I think
Well-
if they've been involved by now, they don't
Right.
give a damn. So
You can't lead people to water
We
to
drag
make them
these
drink.
things
I mean, they've got,
out
you
to try
you
and
can
put
introduce them
everybody
to,
in. Everybody doesn't give a damn.
Okay. Go ahead, Chuck.
you can
Thank you.
introduce people to the concept and drafts and all that, but whether they absorb them at that time or they just say, well, that's something that's going to happen in the future, I'll worry about it
Yeah.
then, or I'll wait till it becomes law and then I'll worry about it then. Then it's too late. I mean, we've got to get these people familiar with what is going to be under their purview once it becomes effective. And I know talking about both the uniform-based code projects that we had that are interim projects, the board members really didn't know that much about the uniform-based code, and they're, I'm trying to explain to them that I'd like you to consider the concept of the uniform-based code, look at it, read it, apply it where you can, and didn't feel a lot of support because to be truthful, they haven't really looked at it that closely and absorbed it as to what it involves, and that's not to their detriment. It's just they didn't have the time, and it's not a priority for them. So
That's it. It's not a priority for them. I mean, we've had meetings
not at
and
the time.
we'll make a meeting. We'll do more meetings. We'll have evening meetings, but are they going to show up if it's not during their regularly scheduled planning board meeting or zoning board meeting? We haven't had much success with that. And I think you hit the nail on the head. It's not part of their, their required stuff.
Mhm.
And they just want to let us figure it out.
Give them CE credits.
Yeah, we could give him, I don't know if you heard Tom, he said, give him training credits.
If you figure it out, don't do it wrong.
I agree.
Yeah. It's hard to get people excited about something until the very end, and then they get really excited and point fingers.
Yeah, I really think the process of our committees and our, sending things to the ordinance committee, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I hear from a lot of people in a lot of different sectors that that is, having that funnel running through the ordinance committee, and eventually it comes out the bottom of the funnel and goes to town board. Again, it's a great process, but we just have to make sure that enough of the public input is included. And Doug, you had said that not to belabor this point regarding the comp plan, but you're going to establish the hearing this month, June. You're going to have the hearing in July. We have a meeting next week. That agenda is already set, the planning board. So the only meeting we'd have time to discuss, review the comp plan would be at our July 13th meeting, which is a couple days before your public meeting where you may take action on the comp plan. That's a tight squeeze.
The town board meeting is July 19th. So and then you're meeting on the 13th, Tuesday. So yes, there's a week minus a day in between. And again, I don't know if the town board's going to establish workshops or whatever the case. I mean, that's the town board's got to make that decision. I mean, at this point, the project team was a subset of the CIC. The CIC has recommended the thing move forward. Now it's up to the town board to make a decision on what it is to do with it. If they hold a public hearing in January, that's okay too. It's just they need to make the decision at this point. It's gone through its process. So, yeah, and I mean, Chuck, anybody could have commented at any point in time. I mean, this is not the first time the comp plan has been to the planning board. It was referred out to all the committees and boards and everything. We had the meetings every 2 weeks for the last 5 months. I mean, anybody at any point in time could have weighed in if there was any concern with any of it. So.
True, although it was never formally discussed at a planning board meeting. Other than it's coming. And true, each individual or any individual on a committee can certainly participate in the process by his or her being involved in that committee. But as far as actually being discussed at a planning board meeting publicly on the record, it has not been discussed at all.
But it could have been. I mean, it wouldn't have been referred to from the town board, but you would have had to just choose to discuss it.
I chose not to bring it up because the draft kept changing and I was waiting for the final draft and figuring that this is the one that's going to eventually be the one that's going to be considered.
It kept changing because I kept getting comments from,
I know.
Especially the last 6 months, when we sent it to all the other committees, they kept making improvements to it.
That's the normal process, and I'm sure every change was pertinent and needed, and that's good. But when it eventually came to the planning board, it was, it would have been in a final draft. This is it. This is the one. This is the one we're setting the hearing on. This is the one to review. This is the one to give us your comments, and so be it. So.
Okay.
Can you not, for your agenda, you have the authority to change the agenda? You can't do something with it next meeting, or do you have too many applications? Or, I mean, it's all possible.
We have too many applications, Joyce.
Okay.
It's the next meeting anyway.
'Tis the season for applications.
Yeah, it is.
So we'll work it out. No big deal. But I just wanted you to make sure you understood our issue, and it sounds like I've more than gone on about it. So I am done talking. But I appreciate your consideration by the entire committee.
Well, and Chuck, and it's not that we're trying to dismiss what you're saying or anything,
no.
but we need the town board to give us some direction. We can't make that decision.
Right, if the town board chooses to delay the public hearing, then there's automatically extra time, if that's what they choose to do.
Again, I want to be clear. My problem was not with the public hearing itself. It was with the decision being made so soon after the public hearing.
Oh, right, I know, and that's it's true, when we write the resolutions or when they have their resolutions, it's often an option that they adopt it that night, much like, what the other boards do. But again, that's up to them if they want to have the public hearing and then postpone the adoption.
And then another thing, just so everybody's aware that I don't believe it's in the rules for the rest of the boards, but any individual town board member can lay over any action at any meeting, automatically giving another 30 days. So it wouldn't even take a majority vote of the town board. If one board member said, when that resolution comes up, I'm laying this over, that's the end of the discussion and it moves on.
Mhm.
Do they know that?
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
I assume the county planning board has to review the comp plan, right?
Yeah, the
Yes.
resolution that's written to set the public hearing, there's a section in it that directs Doug, the town manager, to have the plan forwarded to the planning board, the zoning board, the environmental conservation board, and the Ontario County Planning Board.
Is the county given a certain period of time to respond, or
Yeah,
They are. And it's all, the same calendar that we use for any other planning zoning application and everything else. But they're also, just like the members of the planning board and stuff, they've been made aware of this. They start to, dig into some different pieces of it and stuff at different points in times. They've been involved with some of the project teams or some of the subcommittees. I mean, because let's face it, I think Eric sent an email I saw in December out to the project team that, hey, this is going to the CIC after the project team concluded their work in November. And then it went back out to every single town board committee
Yeah.
at different
Right.
pieces and everything. So it's gotten a lot of look, although this would be the first official
yeah.
time it's come to the town board, but the members have been involved with it and everything. But again, I have no idea. The town board may set a workshop, the town board can do anything obviously at once. I take my direction from the town board, and until they give direction, I can't do anything. So again, if they want to set the public hearing for January, that's fine. They can do that, but they've got to make that decision.
understood? Yep.
Yeah, the language in the resolution presents an option, but they can change it however they want.
Okay.
So my marching orders, I have, I'm gonna work with the Economic Development Committee in Oksana. I'll talk with Gary and see what we can do to make it not form-based code, sorry, I don't know what we're calling it, the mixed-use development phase of the Uptown Plan, the yellow area, a bit more available to the larger audience. So maybe that means we have an evening meeting mixed in with a daytime meeting, or something like that. And I don't know, maybe we consider having the ordinance committee come or be more involved, or I don't know. We'll talk about it. We'll try and figure it out. Because I agree. I do want everybody to see it. I just don't know how involved everybody wants to be. Do they want to be involved in the nuts and bolts part, or just see it when it's ready to go to the next step? But I'll let you guys know. I'll try and
And then
remember to
Sarah,
include the CIC and all those.
Additionally, we're going to have to plan something for the red area, because I don't think the board's, separate from that. Let's not do it at the same meeting, because I
No,
think
this is
people
just
get-
for the yellow part.
Yeah.
And when Bergman gave us their proposal, I think there was something in it for once the form-based code is adopted, they'll do training for anyone who's gonna have eyes on it or have reason to use it. I think that was in there. I can talk to Kimberly and kind of talk to her and let her know it might be coming up soon. And see what they had in mind for that. Cause I'm pretty sure I remember talking about that. Cause yeah, obviously it's new and different and can't just throw it out and let them fend for themselves. I'll put a note to talk to her about that too and find out what they wanted to do with that.
Just goes on and on.
It will never end.
This May 3rd, I'm looking back. Come on.
And I imagine for the red section, the form-based code section along 332, the training I was thinking about, or whatever they're gonna do, a workshop or a presentation. I think that's gonna be intended to be for everybody, especially planning board, zoning board. The town board would benefit from it too.
It's probably like the NRI training,
Yeah,
similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was very helpful, DNRI.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. Well, it's after 10. I don't want to keep everybody too far. I'll take a look and see what's on our calendar for what we're supposed to talk about next, and I'll do that in an email with everybody, okay?
Sounds good.
Thanks, Sarah.
All right,
Thank
and
you, Sarah.
for the next CIC, I think it's fine if we continue to plan to do it like this. Anyone who wants to come in can come in. Anyone who wants to do it via Zoom, well, this seemed to work. I mean, you guys were able to hear us. We can hear you really well, so
Yep,
I'm
very
good
good.
continuing on that path. So,
Yeah.
all right.
I'm just amazed at the voice recognition.
Yes, I don't know if you guys have it on your screen, but on our screen,
That's pretty good.
everything we say is written across the bottom with closed captioning.
Wow.
It's a bit distracting,
It
but
it actually is. I stopped reading it.
Subtitles.
because it doesn't always get it right, so sometimes it says some funny stuff.
Yeah.
Like watch.
It's pretty accurate.
It's better than something.
All right. Well, thank you, guys.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks. all.
Thanks.
Never a dull moment.
Thanks,
We'll
everybody.
get through it.
Good day.
Bye.